right, I'm your host, Justin Little, back with another episode of the Mental Well Podcast, here with a special guest, my man Kizzle. Man, how you doing today?
I'm good, Justin. How are you, bro?
I am blessed, highly favored, feeling amazing today. Been trying to get at you for a little while. You're a busy man. You got some
Yeah,
amazing
man.
things you're doing in the Black mental health space.
hmm
Got your Express yourself Black man page going on. We'll get to that, but just first, before I get anything, let me just check in with you, man. Kizzle, like, how's your day going? How's your mental state, man? How's everything going with you?
Mental state is good. I feel like I'm at like an 8. That's what first came to mind. I just took a break from the page just because I'm the type of person that I take things too personal sometimes, and I realize I can't reach everybody, and that sometimes can be challenging for me. So when I put out my messages and certain things, like sometimes when you have a page that generates a lot of attention and a lot of engagement in social media, you get a lot of people that have their own viewpoints and opinions and perspectives on whatever it is that you say, regardless of if you putting it out with positive intentions or not. And so sometimes that can get to me. And so I was just talking to my therapist about it. I was talking to my girl about it. I was talking to some of the people that I work with about it. And I just realized it was time for me to take a little break, just a week or so. I don't know. And then also assess why it's so important for me to feel like people understand everything that I'm saying on the page. Because at the end of the day, on social media, you have to understand that everybody has their own opinion. Everybody is looking at things from their own perspective. And regardless of if I put things out with positive intention or not, everybody's not going to receive it that way. So you're going to get that negative criticism. You're going to get those comments that you feel like are projections and all of that kind of stuff. You're going to get people that have their assumptions based on what you're saying. So you got to learn how to deal with that. And so that's something that I've been learning how to deal with. So that's led to me taking a break. But overall, I feel like I'm an 8. I feel like I'm an 8 out of 10. Today's been a little busy, but I feel like today's busy is not as busy as it normally would be because I'm not posted on the page. So I do my 9 to 5 with Express Yourself Black Man. So my 9 to 5, when my 9 to 5 is busy and then Express Yourself Black Man is busy, like I have like one of those like, dang, this is like a crazy day. But today has just been like my 9 to 5 is busy, but I added on trying to do my taxes in the middle of like working and all that stuff. So that's why, it's been a little crazy. But yeah, I'm chilling though. Like it's, I'm just taking it one day at a time, man, like everybody says, but really trying to embody that, man, and just take it one day at a time, not stress myself out too much with a bunch of different things, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you being honest because, a lot of times what you just said would be summed up in I'm okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
there's so many different layers.
So what's actually,
and then most people will just, oh, okay, cool, he's okay. But you got a lot of different other things that's going into that okay. And I appreciate you elaborating. I mean, when it comes to the page, and we'll deep dive on the page in a second, but in general, what type of pressure, because you're speaking about needing to take a break from it as a content creator, as someone with a huge following on social media, what type of pressure does that put on you to continue to post and create? Because it's a lot of thought. You're a one-man show, as your website brings out. So
yeah.
what type of pressure do you put on yourself?
That's interesting. When I first got like my first 10K followers, I was like going crazy, for lack of better words, right? And not crazy in the sense, but like, yo, we had 10K, this is great. It was crazy in the sense where it was like, yo, we had 10K, like that's 10K people that's watching. You know what I'm saying? Like that's 10K people that are seeing my post. That's 10K people that I felt responsible for in a sense, right? And so I had those conversations with my therapist where I was like, yo, I don't know what to do now, right? Like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, what you mean? Like, you do the same thing you've been doing, right? And for me, it's like, I don't overcomplicate it, right? Like, I treat the page like how the page was being run when I had 500 followers. There's some tweaks that I've made over time just because I can't do the same thing that I used to do when we had 500 followers, which is like respond to everybody's comments, because that's not good for my mental health, right? Like, I get a lot more comments now than I used to get when I had 500 followers. But for the most part, my approach to running the page is the same. So I express what I need to express. I treat the page like I always tell people whenever people ask me, I treat the page like my digital journal. That's why sometimes you'll see a random post about me talking about something that has something to do with mental health, but it doesn't really have anything to do with like what's going on in the world. It's just something that's going on with me in a specific moment. Like I'll see a tweet or just a text post or whatever, and I'm like, all right, cool. This reminds me of this thing, and I want to talk about it. And so that's how I treat the page. I treat it more as like my digital journal, and I don't try and let it dictate how I respond to things. I don't try and let people or the number of followers that I have dictate how I run the page. So I just put out things that I feel like are helpful for me. So a lot of those posts that you see, like black man, here's how you do this, or black man, here's that, or black man, blah, blah, like the affirmations and all that, like all of those things are things that I needed in that present moment. And that was what I was doing when I first started the page. So I try to keep that element of it. So I don't put too much pressure on myself to continue or to operate in a certain capacity and all that kind of stuff. I kind of let God handle a lot of that. And I just go with what I feel like is necessary in the moment. And I just pray, man. I pray a lot. So I ask for divine discernment. I ask for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. And I make sure that God is at the forefront of what I do. So I give all glory to God for for where we're at right now. And I just let him kind of handle all the other external factors that are out of my control. Because what I realized over time is that I can't control how people receive the content. And I also can't feel like I'm responsible for everybody's mental health in the community. Like that's just it's not doable, right? Like it's not healthy for me. So I just leave that up to God, man.
Yeah, so that's great. I love how you kind of stay balanced and kind of, even though obviously the page grown, you get success, but you're still, the fundamental reason is why it exists and what it means to you stay the same. I think you're staying true to that. I think I really love that. So obviously we don't get to this page overnight. So let's talk more about like your origin story. Like, what growing up as a young Black man, what is that like? What does that look like for you? Like, what are some of the things you went through? Was mental health talked about? Like, was it
Right.
a priority for you growing up?
No, it wasn't. Like most Black men, you know what I'm saying? Like I've only had like maybe like one Black man that I've talked to say like, yeah, nah, we talked about mental health growing up. And I was like, oh wow, okay. He was like, yeah, because my mom was clinically depressed, so she was very aware of what it was, and we kind of had those conversations. But for most Black men that I talked to, and even my story, we ain't really talk about mental health growing up. So what got me into mental health advocacy was in 2017 when I was going through my first I guess, for lack of better words, my first mental health crisis in my life. I was just getting out of a relationship. I was in a relationship from the ages of 14 to 19. And so at 19, I was dormant in college and our relationship was failing. And I had followed her to college. So I'm dormant in the college that I basically followed her to try and keep the relationship afloat, right? So sophomore year, the relationship starts failing. We end up breaking up, and it took a big toll on me mentally because I was just like, "Yo, this is the person that I thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life." I kind of envisioned that, and I didn't have a different reality outside of that. So when I was placed in a new reality where it's like, "Yo, this isn't what you envisioned," I didn't know how to handle that. And I'm 19, I'm dormant, I'm not around family, I'm not around the bros that I had growing up. Like me and my girl just broke up. And so I had this question of who are you? Like, who am I? And I couldn't answer that. I really didn't know what the answer was. I had engulfed myself in the relationship so much to the point where I didn't know who I was. Right. And so it led to like this really deep period of depression. I didn't even know that I was depressed until like 2 months in. And then when I started having suicidal ideations where I was just like, yo, I don't even want to be here anymore. Right. And for me, that's when I was like, yo, I got to figure something out because this ain't me. It was to the point where I was so deep in it that I didn't realize there was a point in my life where I wasn't depressed. Like I just thought like, this is it. Like, this is just what life is. You're just going to be sad for the rest of your life. That's kind of how I felt when I was in it. That's why I can really relate when people talk about like being depressed and not having people to talk to and all that kind of stuff, because I was there, right? Like I get it. So suicidal ideations happen, and I realized like, yo, I really got to figure something out. I got to take better care of myself. And in that moment, what I thought to do was take my mind off of everything that I was experiencing. And so the way that I did that was by learning a bunch of different skills. I learned graphic design, I learned website design, I learned all these different skills to take my mind off of what I was experiencing. And that doesn't really help you heal. It just helps you to forget what you need to heal from. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like a lot of people do that. Like a lot of guys especially do that. Like we go through these hard things and then we try and take our mind off of it. We try to level up through some form of achievement. And we don't realize like the real leveling up is actually doing the inner work to heal. And so I never did the inner work to heal, but I did learn a bunch of different things. I did add to my skill set. And eventually I started feeling a little bit better and I felt like I was good. And so I was like, yo, I'm going to start something called a Kizzle brand. And that's going to be a project aimed at raising awareness for depression and helping people through difficult times. And so that's how I got into mental health advocacy, because of what I was experiencing at that time. But like I told you, I never actually did the work to heal. I never went to therapy. None of my friends that I talked to about everything I was experiencing were recommended therapy. So I ended up hopping into another relationship in 2018, and I was ignoring all these red flags. So we stay in a relationship from 2018 to 2020. Most of that relationship is long distance. 2020 happens, and I can't really practice with a Kizzle brand as much as I want to. And so with a Kizzle brand, what I ended up doing in 2017 up until like 2020 was I would go to different organizations, different schools, nonprofits, whoever would let me in to speak, and I would talk to them. I'll talk to kids from the ages of like 5 to 18 about personal development, how to build a resume, how to practice business etiquette, how to tie a tie, all of these different things that I felt like were necessary that I didn't learn growing up, that I had to learn from experience. And then I'll try to mix that in with mental health. And so 2020 happens, pandemic happens. Obviously, you can't go out to schools and things of that nature. So I can't really invest as much time and energy into a Kizzle brand as I would like to. And so during that time, I also found out that my girl that I was with from 2018 to 2020, that she cheated on me. And so that took a big toll on me, right? Like, I'm dealing with the pandemic. I'm finding out that I just got cheated on. And I wasn't depressed or anything, man, but I was just thinking to myself, why did you ignore all these red flags? Why did you ignore all these things? Why did you stay in this relationship for so long? And that's what spiraled me into going to therapy, right? Because at that point, therapy was talked about a little bit more, and one of my friends was in therapy. And so I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna just hop in, because I felt like all women were evil. And I knew that wasn't the right thought process to have, but that's just how I felt. I was so mad that was kind of blinding, like the rationale, and it wasn't helping me to heal. And so I knew I needed somebody else to kind of help me to deal with some of that stuff. Plus, I knew that if I wanted to get in a relationship with any woman in the future, that I need to learn how to heal that, because having the thought process that women are evil and then trying to get into a relationship with a woman is not going to produce a healthy relationship. So I find my therapist. She's a Black woman. We start talking about all these different things. I start learning all these different things about myself in 2020. And I'm like, yo, bro, therapy is dope. Like, this is crazy. I'm learning so many. I thought I knew myself. Like, I was a person that always did self-reflection, even outside of therapy. So I thought I knew myself super well. But when I got into therapy, I was like, yo, you only know like the surface level, and the surface level of the surface level. Like, you don't even really know that much. Like, I don't care how much self-reflection you do. Once you get into once you start having consistent sessions with a good therapist, you will learn so much about yourself. And so that's what I was going on my personal IG and telling people, like, yo, y'all got to get into therapy. We got to heal. Don't pass that generational trauma down to your kids, all these kind of things. And one of my bros would hit me up and tell me, like, yo, you should start a podcast. And initially I didn't want to do it because I felt like I'll be spending too much time on it. Like, I'm the type of person, when I start something, I have to really dedicate time and energy into it. I can't just start something and then not follow through with it. And so I didn't feel like I wanted to dedicate that amount of time and energy into the podcast initially. But over time, I realized, like, I was putting up all this important information on my story on Instagram. But after 24 hours, that stuff goes down, right? Like, it gets deleted. And I realized, like, yo, if I want to persist this information, if I wanted to remain over time, that it made sense to put it in a medium like a podcast where I could share it and it could stay there, right? And so that's how Express Yourself Black Man started, was the podcast. Was my bro hitting me up like, yo, bro, you should start a podcast. And that was because of therapy and all the stuff that I was learning in therapy. And so we got started with the first episode in December of 2020. January of 2021, I was like, you know what? I want to grow the Instagram out. And so I just took some of the same information that I was talking about on the podcast, and I just made it into posts on the Instagram. And from there, things just started taking off, man. So that's how we got to where we're at right now, man. But it's really just been a blessing, and just the community kind of taking off and sharing a lot of this stuff because it's needed.
Yeah, so talk through, and I love that, a couple of things, right? Because something you mentioned about achievements not doing it for you. You said you was achieving some things,
right?
And it's still, and it's funny you say that, because yesterday, Jay Barnett, who I think he's in this space too, in the Black mental health space.
Yep.
He had an event not far from me in Norfolk State called Just Heal Bro. He wrote a book, Just Heal Bro. And one of the things that was said there yesterday, I was a special guest to go and visit, is your attachments are more important than your achievements. Your attachments are more important than your achievements. And when I started hearing you talk, that's what immediately came to my mind, because you're talking about all these great things that you're doing for yourself, but still there was some things missing in your life, relationship. And I think as men, you mentioned earlier, you work a 9 to 5, no doubt. That's, the breadwinner, and then you do this on the side. We can easily get so caught up in what we're achieving, right? I read on your website, look, 10,000 plus download, like that's great, amazing. Like we want to be successful. We look and see how many people are listening, look at the followers. It means something, but even all the achievements in the world, there's a page in Jay's book, page 62, is about high value. And he asked the question, because it's a journal. He says, well, just because you're successful in your personal life, or excuse me, in your business life and everything, your achievements, how is your personal life?
Right.
Name of success. And I was like, he hit me, because full mask, everybody, hey, got all these followers. I feel good, but like inside, we're hurting. We're in pain, and we're going through something. So when you said that, man, I appreciate you saying that for sure.
Yeah, man. Nah, it's true though, right? Like that's what we do. That's what everybody does in social media. Like we come on social media, we try and put up the best post, the post that'll get us the most likes. We want to get the most engagement. We want to have the most followers, and all that stuff ain't real, man. Like, what's really real is how you actually feel, right? And that's I think that's why people gravitate to the page too, because I just keep it a stack with people. I'll be like, yo, listen, man, I ain't even really feeling it right now. And I know that y'all probably not feeling it too, so it's okay if you don't feel it. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I just be real on Instagram. Like, I'll talk about how I feel like I'm upset at my engagement, and like I don't like how it's looking right now, and then I gotta learn how to stop worrying about me getting I keep it a stack with people. Like I took a break just now because I'm keeping it a stack. Like, yo, bro, I need a break. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I let people know what I'm going through. Like, it's not just a one-off vulnerable moment for me. Like, it's consistent on the page, and I do that purposely, because I feel like it's important for us to normalize being a human being, man. Like, we get on these platforms and we try to be so perfect, man. Like, I've built my platform off of being imperfect, off of saying I'm imperfect and this is what I'm doing about it. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's what is important with us in social media. We have this tool that we don't know how to use properly, man. Like, this is a tool that can connect everybody on earth, as long as you have a device that can connect to the internet. And we use it as a way to show a facade. You know what I'm saying? Like, we use it as a way to show a fake life instead of what we're actually dealing with that people can really relate to. And that's really when you think about it, like when you think about branding and building a business, that's what you want to do. You want to connect with your audience. You want to connect with your community. How do you connect with people? You show them that you're just like them, or you show them why you see them. Right. And so those are the two things that I feel like I do on a page. And I don't do it because I'm trying to sell stuff. I'm doing it because it's like, yo, this is me. This is what works for me. And I hope it works for you. And if it doesn't, let's have a conversation about what could work for you. Right. And so that's how I try to lead it. But it's so important that we don't get stuck up in that like achievement, man, because getting stuck in that achievement doesn't really do much for us. Like, it's all artificial, right? Because you still got to go home and deal with what's going on underneath all of that.
Yeah. I mean, and sometimes it's pressure you put on yourself. I'll admit, like as a creator, I'll look at an episode like, all right, that one did so well. Why didn't this one do good? Or, like they didn't, where they at? Like, then you start doubting yourself. Like, man, did I lose it? And, being consistent. And it's like when it goes to post, or like that post hit, but this one didn't, this one, like you start to really second guess yourself. And I think sometimes we can battle against ourselves a lot of times, and against our own genius of our mind, and start to question ourselves. But I think it's important for us to have balance. I think it's important for us to take breaks. I think that's important too, because, just because you have, like, I thought at one point, I said, well, if I take a break, I'm gonna lose listeners. But then someone told me, says, look, if you lose a list, you have a mental health podcast. You have a mental health platform. If you lose listeners because you took a mental health break, then man, they really want what you're shooting in the gym.
Exactly.
They really, those are the ones because if they sit here mad because they're not gonna get an episode for 1, 2, whatever, and you doing what you're preaching. Like, that was my thing. I said, I gotta do what I'm telling y'all to take care of yourself, and I'm sitting here like, I need a break. I gotta go. So how am I gonna tell y'all to do something that I'm not willing to do? I'm gonna lead by example, and if I lose you because of that, then maybe this platform won't for you anyway. So, man, I mean, because even like with your podcast, I was noticing your description on the podcast, and it's on your website as well. It's beautifully said. It's studies show on average men lose 2.8 years of their life when under heavy stress. This podcast is my way of gaining those 2.8 years back. Listen as I speak on my trauma, experiences, and lesson learned from therapy and this in-depth look at life as a Black man. Dude, you can't say it no better way, but it's an important point that a lot of us are out here stressing, man. We're stressing ourselves.
Nah, it's a fact, man. And that's really the main reason why I started the podcast. One of the main reasons, right? Like I looked at that study and I was like, yo, 2.8 years, bro. Like that's almost 3 years. That's 3 years that you lose off of stress, bro. I am not willing to give up 3 years because I don't want to express myself, bro. I'm good. Like I'm good. I'm going to get those 3 years back. You get what I'm saying? Like I'm going to get those 3 years back. And so I'm going to speak about the things that bother me, because I'm not going to leave it on my chest for it to take time off of like, you know, take off time that I'll be on this earth. Like I just can't, man. And so that's what I like. It's not what I always think about when I post, but it's so ingrained in me now that whenever I feel like, yo, dang, this thing is on my chest, the first thing I think to do is either talk to somebody about it or post about it or write something about it, because that's my therapeutic process if I'm not actually in therapy having a conversation with my therapist.
Yeah, so speaking of that, you got to talk through, when we go to your website, Express Yourself Black Man, what are some of the things we can find on there? Because when I was strolling the website a little earlier, found out you have an ebook coming in June of 2022. So that's just a few months away. And this is going to cover how to heal without therapy, what therapy is, how to find a Black therapist, with or without insurance, how to be successful at therapy, how to transition to a new therapist. So talk through why you felt a need to create this, and anything else that's on your website as far as resources and tools that can really help those in the mental health space.
Absolutely. So the website, when you go on there, it has a shop, it has the podcast, it has the therapy resources. The shop just has all the merch. It has the first ebook, From Hurting to Healing, A Black Man's Guide to Feeling. That ebook is separated in 4 chapters. One on breakups. The second one is on depression and suicidal ideations. The third one is on anxiety. And the fourth one is on attachment styles. And so what I do in each of those chapters is I talk about how to heal. And I also talk about my story with dealing with the chapter subject. So in the breakup chapter, I talk about the breakup in 2017. The depression chapter, I talk about the depression and suicidal ideations that I experienced. And then I talk about the second half of the chapter, I talk about how to heal, what I did to kind of get through that process. And so that's the ebook. The podcast, obviously, is Express Yourself Black Man. We have over 40 episodes, a bunch of dope guests talking about a lot of different topics in our community: dating, relationships, suicidal ideations, vulnerability, why women need to heal, Black women healing Black men, the importance of taking care of your mental health, all of these different episodes, right? Like there's so many dope episodes on the podcast. It's also on YouTube. So definitely go and listen to that and watch it if you're watching it on YouTube. And then the last part of the shop, or the last part of the website, is the therapy resources. So the therapy resources has the link to where you can sign up for early access for the therapy ebook and the exclusive community that we're launching later this year. And so the reason why I felt the need to write the therapy ebook is because I get a lot of DMs from people looking for therapy, man. Like anytime I say, yo, DM me for therapy resources, I'm going to get some kind of DM. I'm going to get some DMs. And I'm tired of just sending people to the page and kind of having them fend for their own and try and figure things out. Like I made a YouTube video about it, but I just feel like there's more to be done. I feel like the ebook will be helpful because it's just a resource that people can have right in front of them. They can go to whatever page they need to go to. If they're looking for how to find a Black therapist, it will be outlined in the book. If they're looking for information on how to potentially find therapy, or not even therapy, potentially find insurance and they're unemployed, and they don't have like a parent or somebody that can actually give them insurance as a dependent on their insurance plan, then that should also be in there. So it's going to be a lot of different important like resources and information for our community, man, because when I was starting therapy, I was lucky to have someone that had went through the process before me, right? And so they just gave me the game instead of me having how do I find a Black therapist on Google and then trying to look and see what is the reputable site and what is actually the process that I need to follow. Like it's hard. It's just hard to figure it out. And like a lot of us struggle trying to find Black therapists. And so we assume that there are no Black therapists. We don't even know, like there's so many things that you can do to kind of get around not having a Black therapist in your area. But a lot of people say, oh man, I'm living in Arkansas, man. Like I can't find no therapist out here. And it's like, well, you don't necessarily, like, if you're looking for therapy, you can't find a therapist in Arkansas. You can potentially contact a therapist in a different state and y'all can have a conversation about doing coaching instead of therapy. Right. And technically y'all still be doing therapy, but it'll be labeled under coaching. So you don't have that state restriction where they can only practice in whatever state they're in. So it's like there's a lot of different things that go into finding mental health resources and support. And so I'm trying to put some of that stuff in the book. But what I'm really trying to do outside of the ebooks are great, man. But a lot of times people buy the ebook because they're making an emotional decision and they don't even read it. Like, you know, like, and that to me bothers me as well. Like I know I'm putting a lot of dope information in the ebook, but a lot of people either one don't have the time to read it or two don't feel compelled to read it in that moment. And so that leads to them not getting help, right? And so for me, that's the reason why I want to start the exclusive community. And so that community will be based on a platform where I'll have ownership over all my content. Everything will be categorized. So all the posts and the podcast episodes will be categorized. So if we're talking about relationships, any relationship post or podcast will have its own section. So if you're just in there just to look at relationship content, you can get that. If you're in there looking for therapy content, you can get that. Anxiety content, you can get that. Depression content, you can get that. You'll find it is all going to be categorized. Whereas right now on the IG, I'll tell somebody, yo, go find this post. And they got to scroll through. They can't find it. Sometimes I get DMs like, yo, bro, can you send that post to me? Then I got to go find it in my Canva. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got to go find it myself. Like, it's not searchable. It's not like IG's posts aren't indexable, right? And so it's hard to find things that are useful for the community that I know I've posted. And that's a problem. And so the exclusive community will help with that. I also have like live podcast interviews. So people that are supposed to be on a podcast that, you know, when we're recording it, instead of me just recording it in my crib and then like putting it out at a later date, I can record it live and actually have people in the community comment and ask questions in person, right? Or live. I also have that. And then I'm also working hard on getting a partnership to get low cost therapy options, because I understand like content and podcasts are not therapy, right? Like it's going to give you more knowledge, but therapy is therapy, right? Like going and talking to someone that's actually a licensed professional is therapy, right? And so I want to make sure that I include that in the community. And so we're in talks with some organizations trying to figure out how we can get low cost therapy for members of the community. So you sign up, you get your subscription, you get all the great stuff that I just mentioned, plus other stuff that I haven't even mentioned that will also be included in the exclusive community, but you'll also get low cost therapy. So each session will be either $50 or less. And you'll have an intake session where somebody will walk you through that process instead of me just giving you documentation or giving you a page where you had to figure it out and go to the right directory and then find a therapist yourself. You will have an intake session. Somebody will walk you through what you need to do. And then they will make sure that you get through the process, and they'll work with you to make sure that your insurance is on board or make sure that therapist is on board. So they take out a lot of the heavy lifting. Like if I knew that I could just book a 15-minute call with somebody and they would take care of finding therapy for me, I'd have been done that. Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a 15-minute session, and it's going to be $50 per session for therapy or less, depending on if the person has insurance or not. So we're in talks with an organization to kind of do that. And so that'll be coming out later this year. But yeah, that's everything that you can find on the page. And that's where the platform is moving. We're going to have a subscription-based community. You pay per month, and then we're just really going to have a community of like-minded Black men helping to heal each other, man. And it's really going to be a dope thing, because this is the first, like, there's no other community like it right now, right? There's no community like there's healing communities online, but there's no community that's offering like therapy resources as well, like low-cost therapy that's partnered with an organization that does that. That's also a Black-run organization. You get what I'm saying? Like there's no other community like that. So I'm just walking in what it is that God is telling me to do. And I think this is going to be a really dope thing for our culture for sure.
You know what? One thing I really love, Kizzle, about all of that is like, and my listeners know this by now, I hate by now, not, I hate sure. People say mental health awareness is a buzzword. It's awareness time. Like, okay, cool. We need to raise awareness for a problem that most people didn't know existed. Fair.
Right.
But now that we know there's a problem, what are you going to do next? Everything
Right.
you just talked about is action, right? Mental health action. Like, look, I'm not going to just talk about it. I'm going to do about it. So that's why I really love having people like you on the podcast to talk about, hey, here's what we're going to do. And here's how I'm going to do it, right? You have a plan, you have things lined up, and it's something that's going to truly help people. Like, I think
Right.
this needs to, like, once you establish what you're doing with your exclusive brand, like, you need to be on the road somewhere. You need to be touring somewhere in front of people at conferences. People need to hear this message because you have obviously a following now, but more people need to see this because it's the work. It's the missing piece of, all right, now that we're aware, we need to heal, we have trauma, we need to, all right, now what? And you're like leading them to the pasture, like you're giving them, you know what I'm saying? You're giving them the gems. And I really appreciate that because that's the type of people that I want to support, is people who are willing to, you know, put their money, put their actions, put their resources, put their time where their mouth is.
Right, absolutely. And that's something that I think about heavily. Like, that's the reason why I wrote Hurting and Healing, because I would answer a lot of the same questions in my DMs. Like, people were asking me about anxiety, they asked me about a breakup, they asked me about depression, and I'm just like, all right, you know what, man, these are buzz topics. Let me write an ebook about it. So I wrote that first ebook, and it's done well. And what I realized is like, yo, there's people that's gonna read the ebook and they're gonna learn a lot. It's gonna change their life. But there's a lot of people that are not gonna read the ebook. Like, they're gonna get it, but they're just not gonna read it. And so I started thinking like, yo, what are some ways that I can help people and also help myself where I'm not stressing myself out too much. The thing about IG is that you can build this huge following and you could lose it, especially as a Black creator. You could lose that following. Like, I could lose my following tomorrow, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I could lose it tomorrow just off of not having access to my page anymore, off of some nonsense happening where like they just block my page or they shut down my account. I've seen that happen with so many different creators that I may not be as like viral that everybody knows as a household name, but they had a substantial following, you know, to me, right? And to them at least. And so I don't want to build this whole thing and then have it taken down by some nonsense. And I also feel like it's important for us to have spaces that we own, like the content and stuff that we create, and we own the space so that we can make sure that it's tailored to our community. Because who knows our community more than we do, right? Like, IG doesn't know the Express Yourself Black man community more than I do. Yeah. They can have all the metrics and data and insight that they want, but at the end of the day, they'll never know how to talk to the members of the community the way that I know how to talk to, just because this is something that I've built from the ground up. So I understand the people in the community, like I really do. And I talk to them, like I talk to the people in the community, like I know the different people that are in there. So I think it's important to build things that really cater to what it is that they need and what it is that they're telling me that they need, right? And this is something that I've kind of teased out, like, yo, this is something we're gonna do, and people are like, yo, this is dope. We would love it. I would love to support this, right? So it's like, all right, cool. It makes sense to do it, and I know it'll help, and it won't only help them, but it'll help me too. So I think it's gonna be a dope thing for sure, and we're gonna think about a tour or whatever after.
Boy, there's a lot to do with it, man.
Man.
You know, and I love that piece too about ownership, because a lot of times it's easy for creators to complain about platforms. Well, I'm gonna go create my own. I'm gonna go create my own platform and let it be a space to host my stuff and not allow my everything that I've built and put time into to be held hostage by someone else. I love that. So I want to get you out of here on this question, man. As you know, suicide is the second leading cause of death in ages 10 to 34. So we're both in that age bracket. We've seen a significant high rate in the Black community, particularly Black men. We know why that is. We know the generational trauma, the hurt, the healing that needs to happen. I was leaving this college yesterday and saw some of these 19, 20-year-olds, man, football players, finally talking about some of the trauma they were going through for the first time. And it was so like powerful to hear. So to that Black man out there, to that young Black man, that's 15-year-old, that 20-year-old, that 25-year-old, that 40-year-old who's struggling to take care of his family, and he has so much burdens, and his wife has no idea. What would you say to that Black man that's looking for help, looking for resources, maybe on the edge of just thinking about giving up.
Right.
What would your words be to that person?
I would say what I wish somebody said to me when I had my experience with suicidal ideations. And for me, that would be, yo, there is a silver lining. I know it may seem dark. I know you may not have seen it in a while. I know you may feel like you've lost hope and that there's nobody that cares about you, but there is a silver lining. You are loved. You are cared for. Please, please, please reach out. That's what the whole community is for, right? Like that's what Express Yourself Black Man is about. I respond to my DMs. People always like when I respond to DMs, people are like, damn man, I can't believe that you. I'm like, yeah, bro. Like,
You actually responded? Oh wow.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, bro. I respond to DMs. Like sometimes it takes me a little while just because I have all these other DMs that I get, and I try to kind of prioritize them based on what I think the community needs and like what people are sending. But I respond to my DMs. I try to reach out and like make sure that people are good. So I would tell that person like, yo, reach out. You are not alone. It's okay to feel the way that you feel, because I feel like a lot of times we don't normalize that feeling. Like, yes, you shouldn't act on it, but it is okay to feel that way, right? Like we all get depressed. And for a person that is depressed with no outlet, that's what leads to those suicidal ideations. With no outlet and you feeling like people don't really care about what it is that you have going on. So I was there, I understand it, but take it from me, man. Like it does get better over time. You have to take it one day at a time, as cliche as that is. I wouldn't even say one day at a time. I would say 1 minute at a time, one moment at a time when you have suicidal ideations, right? Like just try and do things that you feel like would be beneficial to you in that moment, right? And be unapologetic about that. Don't engage in vices and things of that nature, but things that you feel like you can kind of celebrate. And so what I used to do a lot of the times was to kind of get my mind thinking more positively was I would celebrate the smallest thing. Like I would find the absolute smallest thing that I could and celebrate it like I just won a championship or something, man, like for real. And so for me, sometimes it would be just getting up out of bed, right? Like turning the TV on, or going to school, or making it through the school day, or getting back home and not thinking about a certain situation. And so like those would be celebrations for me. And what I would do to make sure that I did that was at the end of each day, I would end it by I was basically doing a gratitude journal, but I would think about 3 different things that I was grateful for to end the day. And that really helped to change my perspective on my situation. It really helped me to reframe what was actually going on. And it helped me to kind of get to the point where I was like, okay, life isn't that bad. It's bad. Like it's bad, but it's not as bad as I thought it was. And as soon as I was able to think, okay, it's not as bad as I thought it was, I was able to kind of get the energy to kind of do other things. And then that helped me to kind of make that shift in my mental health. So for anybody that's going through it right now, man, it's okay. I understand where you're coming from, but don't let that strip you of what the actual reality is, which is you are loved, you are better here, and we need you. So reach out to somebody for sure. Join the community. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on IG. Consume some of the podcast episodes. Consume some of the content. If you want the Hurt and the Healing ebook and you're listening to this, you're like, yo, I was listening to the Mental Wealth podcast and I really want that ebook, and you don't have enough money for it, send a DM. I'll send you the download link. So it's all about helping people as much as we can and making sure that we're available as a resource, and that's what the whole platform is about. So yeah, that's what I would say for sure.
Appreciate it. And tell them real quick, what's your website, what's your Instagram? I know those are your 2 main channels. Where can they find you? Also your YouTube, all that good stuff.
Yeah. So you guys can find the website at www.expressyourselfblackman.com. Like I said earlier, it has a shop, the podcast, therapy resources. It will have the exclusive community later on. You can find the podcast on YouTube and all major podcast streaming platforms. All you have to do is search up Express Yourself Black Man. It's on all major podcast streaming platforms. And the YouTube is just Express Yourself Black Man as well. So you can go on YouTube, type in Express Yourself Black Man, and subscribe. We have videos on a bunch of different topics in the community. I do reaction videos and I try to break it down in a mental health form. And just give y'all some knowledge on what could be going on behind the scenes when we see some of these things that go viral on social media. And then I also post podcast episodes where each week we have a different guest, a different topic, and we're talking about things that can help you with your mental health. And then the last thing would be the therapy resources on the page. So if you go to expressyourselfblackman.com/therapy, you can sign up to register for the therapy ebook. You can sign up to register for the exclusive community. It's the same form on that site. And then you can scroll down. I have a YouTube breakdown on how to find a Black therapist with a bunch of different directories and a sample email that you can send out to therapists for your initial contact to them. So I try to make it super simple for people, man. And we're gonna even simplify that process even more in the exclusive community, man. Like, so yeah, man, I appreciate you having me for sure, man.
Of course, man. Thank you so much, Kizzle. And in his own words, you talk about this outlet, this community, from his own words, his own website, that Kizzle, he created this platform so that all Black people could have a safe space to express themselves healthily with the hope of creating a community of healing, bro. So just, hey, man, appreciate you for doing all the work that you're doing, man. Keep up in any way that we can support you, man. We're here for you, man.
I appreciate you, Justin. Thank you for having me, man.
Of course. All right, man. This has been another episode of the Mental Wealth Podcast.